Hey everybody, it's Chris Mahan. I hope you can all hear me and I hope this is working. This is my first live stream. So we're going to try and make this work. I'm trying to see where I can let people in and get feedback. Hopefully, you guys are able to see everything. I hope this is actually working. Uh, Chat is disabled from this stream. Okay, how do I edit that? That's not what I want. Give me a second, guys. This is a first time stream. I've been working on this stuff all day. Each platform has different requirements. So let me see if I can get this thing up and running so that we can actually have your feedback because that's what I want. Let's see here. This is kind of. I was on another platform to stream and then it sent me over here. So I'm trying to live chat replay. I apologize for this. Well, let me see if I can. If anybody has any ideas how to um, get the chat so you guys can actually chat back, that's what I want. I want input. It's not showing me many things. Well, that's kind of embarrassing. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and get this going. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Chris Mahan, and I have been working with young people now for about 10 years. And the last couple of years have been very challenging because there's been so many things happening in our country. We're now going on almost 25 years, if not close to 25 years, um, since Columbine. And since that time, we've had over 380,000 young people affected by um, gun violence. And that's something that is unacceptable to me. So I'm guessing it is you too, or you wouldn't be here. So what I wanted to do, oh my gosh, that's too loud. Hold on a second. After what happened in Georgia a few weeks ago, not a week and a half ago, I decided I wanted to do something to try and figure out what's going on with school shooters and what's happening with them and what we can do to, as a community, try and make things better. I'm hoping you guys can hear me. If anybody has my number or my email, please let me know if you can hear everything okay because this is the first time doing this and I want to make sure that it actually works. So if you can reach out to me at Lead Your Teen, LeadyYourTeen, and let me know if you're getting this okay. If you're a friend of mine, you have my phone number, please give me a text. Liam, if you're watching, please give me a text. Make sure everything's working so we can get this thing underway. I don't know why this is not allowing me to have chat. I'm saying edit. This is really disturbing. This is exactly what I was worried about all day. I was like, oh, I hope that things work out technically. I hope it's all good. But again, it's the first time live, so we're gonna try and make this work. I have got this scheduled for 8 weeks, and I'm bringing in therapists. I'm bringing in a counselor. I'm hoping to get some lawyers on here to talk about the legal side of things and what's going on with the legal side, and also just let me go over here and see if this is working. This is showing that everything is working over here. Let me go back over here. Uh, Man, I wish I had a way to get you guys in. I know I've been posting this and getting things out there. If anybody has any feedback on how to change this goofy setting so I can get you guys in, that would be fantastic. I'm not sassy stream, webcam, manage, pop out dashboard. Yeah, you think, oh, go live. So simple, so easy. Okay. Well, hopefully this will work. And if you are on, I apologize that there's no feedback right now from you, but there will be as we go forward. Um, I I know as a parent, as a dad, this whole school shooter thing has been difficult for everybody. It's just sick what's happening in the world and how things are turning out for our kids today. But what we always look at is what the shooter has done and not who they are as a person. Like what led them to this, what led them to this horrible thing that they did, the school shooting. So what I came up with was Shadows on the Wall, and I got that name because when I've worked with kids, I've been working with kids now for 10 years, and the kids that are bullied, the kids that feel bad, the kids that just don't feel like they belong, often tell me, I feel like I'm invisible. I feel like I'm just a shadow. So I kind of thought, okay, that's kind of an appropriate name. But what we don't ever look at is what is leading these kids to believe that shooting someone is their only recourse to be heard and to end this misery that they're in, to cause other pain on the people. So what I want to do is look at the root cause of the psychology behind this and what it's done over the years, how we as a society have kind of neglected some of these things, and how our lack of parental leadership in the home is causing so many kids today to feel like they don't belong, don't matter, they're worthless, they don't feel like they have any sense of purpose, or their life is horrible, whatever that may be. There are certain things that we have to look at. There's certain red flags, certain triggers that have been around for decades. Now, yes, we have a social system. We have DCF, we have the police, we have the schools, we have counselors. But even with all that, we have school resource officers. Things aren't working, things aren't happening. And we have to come up with a better solution. What happened a few weeks ago in Georgia? Oh, my nose itches. Um, was just another example of a failed system. If you saw the now very famous footage from a year ago where the officers showed up to the house to discuss a concern they had over a message on Discord that had been tracked back to this young man that shot these folks. And his dad was like, "Oh, we take it very seriously," which I'm sure he does. And I'm not saying I don't know these people, so maybe he does. Maybe this has just blown his world out of the water too. But as a father, if my son had the sheriff show up at my door and they said, "Hey, did you post this I want to shoot up a school message on Discord, was that you?" And they came up with some excuse like, "Oh, my account was hacked. I'm not really sure what it was." And then, in this case, the dad was giving him all the acknowledgement that, oh, he's understanding what it is and he takes this very serious, we take this very serious, and you know this just can't be, but if it is, I'm gonna do something about it. I don't know what happened after that when the door closed, but if it was my house, I would have been going through every single thing that my son had, whether it was a phone, a tablet, a computer, who he's around, what's he doing, what's he watching. I'd be looking at everything. The last thing I would do is give him a weapon after this. So part of the problem isn't just the kids. The part of the big problem is a lack of parental leadership in the home. And when I say this to people, they get very upset saying, "Well, we have a great home. We have a great family. Our family is perfect." Or, "How could this happen to this family? They have everything. They have a nice home and nice cars and they take great vacations." The myth is if they're in a nice home and the parents have jobs and they drive nice cars and they have all the societal norms in check, that there couldn't ever be any problems. And that is one of the biggest myths on the planet. Whether it's teen suicide, whether it's drug use, whether it's alcoholism, whether it's teen date rape, whether it's just any type of negative behavior, just because you live in a nice home doesn't mean that you are void of problems. Likewise, they always say, "Oh, it's always the poor kid, or it's the trailer park kid, or it's the weird kid, or it's the new kid that moved in." So there's always an excuse to not look at themselves in the mirror and say, maybe I could have something to do with my kid doing this one day, or maybe my kid could be uh, on the receiving end of drugs or abuse or something else of that nature. Just the other day, Friday night, actually, I heard a large crash in front of my house, and I looked out, and right at the end of the street, A group of teenagers were passing on a two-lane road, and as an oncoming car was coming, they swerved in and drove right into the house. They drove right into a house, and there was a whole bunch of them. They're all teenagers, and all of us saw this. So you better check them for drugs. You better check them for something. Nothing. The parents showed up. They weren't angry. They were like, "Oh, this is okay." Now, granted, no one was hurt, so that's good. But looking at this family, just looking at the body language, look at the dynamics of this, and looking at this teenager, we all said this kid is going to do something dangerous again. He just drove a car full of people into a house where people were living, and it was like, "Oh, okay, that's fine, no big deal." That kind of parental lack of leadership, that apathy, if you will, is what leads to future problems. So, one of the things we're going to look at in this series is what is the early behavioral uh, psychology in a child's development? Because believe it or not, the things that happen at ages, 0 to 18 months, 2 to 3, 4 to 6, these things, whether it's a home full of distress and dysfunction, whether there's a lot of abuse, whether there's a lot of mistrust, we're going to talk about that, develops into later years into a child not being able to function properly in society. There's no coping skills. They use negative outlets to deal with their anger and their pain. They become withdrawn, socially awkward, if you will. And we see this so often today because so many kids today look like this. They don't want to leave their home. They don't want to leave their video game. They don't want to talk to anybody. It is a huge crisis when it comes to young people dealing with jobs and dealing with just other adults in their own peer group. They don't know how to handle anything. So it's not just a school shooter. They're just one of tens of thousands of teenagers in that age group. But it only takes one to create the damage that we all face. We all deal with it, and as a community, as families, as schools, as the kids that are involved with this. So it's something that we all have to deal with. We all have to look at it. So the purpose of this program is to have all of us. Once I can get some, uh, I'm going to check here again. This is making me really mad that I can't get anything in here. Um, I apologize. I don't know why it's saying chat is disabled for this live stream, but it's not showing me where to actually change it. How's that for something? Let me go to manage. Nope, it just says stream webcam. Uh, well, that's interesting. Well, hopefully you can hear me and everything's working on your side. Because I'm really disappointed it's not here. But we're gonna keep going. So over the last 10 years, I've been working with young people, over 1,000 of them. I've taught over 6,000 hours of workshops with these young people. And what I've learned with working with young people is they need structure, they want leadership, they want to be told no, they want to know that people have their back, but also allow them some autonomy to do what they got to do. And these are all things we're going to talk about here in a second. Uh, I'm going to show you some names from the past that these men are very famous when it comes to child development, when it comes to brain development, and the things that they talk about are working today. Everything in there is uh, part of what we're seeing today, whether it's mistrust, whether it's the social issue that I spoke of, whether it's the anger that I just spoke of. They mentioned all this decades ago. This is not new. The things that we're seeing today, we've known what this is and what causes it for decades. So my question to us as a society is why are we so lax in looking at the facts. Why are we so quick to put an excuse on bad behavior? Why are we so quick to make an excuse and label something as a reason why our young people are failing? Why is that the case? Because what we're seeing right now is the death toll is going to rise. This is not going to go away. We just had last Thursday, while I was putting this show together, we had two right here in Pasco County, Florida. We had two shooting threats at two different high schools. I couldn't believe it when I saw the news. I was literally putting the poster together for this show, and it broke that there was a potential shooting or weapon on campus, 2 blocks away to high school, not far from my office, and then there was another one the same day at a high school a little further into the county on the east side. So was it connected? I don't know. But in both cases, the teens were found. There was no weapon. But the fact that they even make that threat today, knowing that that's going to get them arrested, knowing it's going to get them in trouble, why? Why are they doing this? We have to look at, again, early. We have to go way back. We can't just look at the tip of the iceberg. We have to go way back to understand what kind of life are they living? What kind of situation are they in? What kind of parenting relationship do they have? Do they have a lot of just total dysfunction in their home and chaos in their home? Is there drug use in their home, alcohol, abuse? Are they moving a lot? Is law enforcement involved with their life? Have they been tossed around from family member to family member? Have they gone through the social system through foster care? All of these things contribute to the lack of true cognitive development in that young brain. So by the time they're 14, 15, 16 years old, they've had a decade or more of dysfunction, fear, anger, constant fight or flight mode where they're always on edge and antsy and just survival mode. And then when they do get in the system and people want to help them, it's usually, oh, we're going to medicate them. We're going to give them something for their anxiety. We're going to give them something for the depression. We're going to give them something for their anger issues. We're going to do something, and it comes in the form of a pill. I don't believe in that. And if that upsets people, I apologize. Actually, I don't apologize. I'll tell you why. I don't believe in the pill because a pill is only going to mask the true problem. Yes, it might change their mood. Yes, it might give them some boosts of you know temporary enjoyment in life, but it doesn't go back to the root cause of what they're going through. And that is the huge problem that kids face today. We as adults want to make it easy for us. Now, I work in the social system, so I can tell you that we do have limitations as to what we can do in the social system, how much we can get involved. Uh, DCF can only do so much, law enforcement can only do so much, schools can only do so much. So, in retrospect, we are doing stuff, but we're not doing enough as a society. When parents are struggling, and we all know it, we can't just walk in and say, "Hey, you're really having a hard time, so you better get your act together." DCF does that a little bit, law enforcement might a little bit if there's domestic violence. But again, when you remove the kid from the home, are they going to a better situation in foster care? Are they going to a better situation with grandparents or family, or is it worse? I've known kids that have come through foster care where it's worse than what their actual family was because foster parents aren't always the best. Family members are usually just like the other family they were with, but now it's just better a little bit, but there's still abuse. There's still fear. There's also the fact that the kids are thinking, well, why didn't mom and dad want me? Why am I such a burden to them? Why am I such a problem? And now we've got a whole nother situation happening. We have what's called the safe life story. And I gave this analogy in a video promoting this show where I use an acorn seed, little acorn seed. I'll use this. I'll pretend like this is an acorn seed. Okay. So here's the problem. Here's a little issue in the kid's life. He's 4 or 5 years old, 6 years old. Here's a little problem. Something happens in the home. There's a divorce. There's a fight. There's a dad leaves. Someone dies. Something catastrophic happens. There's abuse going on of some kind, maybe to the child, God forbid, but maybe so. And when this happens, this little idea, okay, I'm at home, the dogs are barking. It's been one of those days. It's the first show. Here you go. It's live. Can't change it. Got dogs in the house. But this little problem that could be easily controlled, easily solved, is ignored. And so what happens is the child then takes that idea because they're small, because they don't know how to deal with life yet. The only thing they can do is put a feeling to that idea. They don't know how to vocalize it. They don't have a vocabulary to say, "Hey, I'm having a hard time. I'm having a bad day. What can I do?" Excuse me. And they begin to tell themselves to deal with this and to accept it and to cope with it. So this little itty bitty idea, this little thing, this thought becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger to where one day they don't even know where it began. They just feel. They feel upset. They feel angry. They feel let down. They feel neglected. And what happens for kids today is by the time they are in middle school, they've now had 8 or 9 years, maybe even say 7 years of this feeling. And when I work with young people of all ages, they can be 22, they can be 25, they can be 30. I'll say, when do you remember when things were great for you? At what point in your life was it just fantastic? Like the sky was the limit, everything was great. And they'll start thinking a minute and say, well, I think I was 10. 10 was awesome. Okay, well, what happened after 10? Like at that period, was it, what happened? And it's always something. There was a death, there was a divorce, there was a move, there was an abuse of some kind. And will ask them, well, did you get counseling for that? Were you able to talk to anybody? Were you able to get it cleared up? And they'll say, no, I didn't talk to anybody. I was told to grow up and not worry about it. Not, big boys don't cry. There's always stupid things. So they take that problem and to put it in a structure they can understand. They now tell themselves, must be I'm no good. No one wants to hear what I have to say, so it doesn't really matter what I have to say. And as they get older, that feeling becomes deeper and deeper and deeper. Now, in these situations too, I'd ask, well, did things get better after 11 or 12 when this happened? No, my mom went from guy to guy, or we lost our house. I had to change schools a lot. My friends changed. Um, a cousin or a friend introduced them to drugs, whatever it may be, it just kind of grows and gets bigger and gets worse. And again, this has nothing to do with socioeconomics. That has nothing to do with where someone lives. This is just human nature, human behavior. So I want to, if I can do it here, I want to share a screen. See, I'm on this YouTube. Let me see if I can do it over here. Let me see if I can share this screen here. Where? Well, this is frustrating too. This is not good. I've created an entire PowerPoint for you guys to explain all these things. Let me see if I can. Now it's not going back to here. Well, this is frustrating. Okay, I'm not liking YouTube Live because you can't share a screen. Um, hmm, that's interesting. Okay. Well, I'm just gonna tell you, there's Dr. Eric Erickson is a psychologist. He's passed away now, but he came up with 8 stages of life, and the early stages. Uh, the one that I like the most to describe this is Dr. Eric Erickson is trust mistrust, and this is about from like age 0 to 2, right in there. And what this says is that a child will you have trust or mistrust in the world if they know that their needs are met. Now, prior to age 2, a child is going to cry when they need something. Usually, from 3 to 6 months, they'll vocalize through a different cry sound. If they're hungry, if they want comfort, if they're upset, if they're afraid, and there has been studies now that actually show the different sounds that babies make depending on how they feel, which is kind of crazy, but they do. If you're not listening for it, you think, oh, the kid's just crying. Think of the home where a kid is crying all the time. We see the crime rate where the crimes where someone has shaken the baby and has killed the baby because we find out, oh, the baby wouldn't quit crying. It happens all the time because people don't understand that cry is their way to vocalize a need. When they get into about age 2, if they've had these needs not met and now they continue to be neglected, left alone, hungry, whatever it may be, they begin to literally at that age, according to Dr. Erickson, believe that the world is not a trustworthy place. And as they get older, and now they can start to vocalize, they can go into school. Think about this: if you're a school teacher and you've ever taught first grade or kindergarten or even pre-K, and you get kids that come in today that is out of control, that didn't just happen. That is typically because, in my view, because there is a mistrust there. They have to stand up for themselves because they haven't been able to get what they need their whole life. And now they're in a social setting, school, where they're now competing with 25, 20 other kids, where at home might be two or three or just themselves. So now their world is amplified in terms of feeling alone, feeling that they're going to have to really fight for what they want, and they're only 3 or 4 or 5 years old. So if we take all of this and we think about the true dangers of what's happening in today's teenagers and 20 somethings, 22, 23, 24, this is an entire life of mistrust. So when we see the end result, like we did last week in Georgia, we can go back now and say, okay, a year ago, his dad had a warning. And we think, well, what was the family like? Well, now we have there's reports out now where the mom has got a lot of dysfunction in her life. The dad and mom are separated. This young man has gone from school to school. As he said in the video with the police back in May of 2023, that was bullied. So it just seems like, and he wasn't a very big kid, so he was probably picked on a lot. It just seems like this kid was a perfect storm to do something. Was the dad trying to help him? Maybe he was. I don't know. I don't know that I'm not going to say that he was or wasn't. But why would he give him a weapon knowing that his son is having mental difficulties? Why would he give his son a weapon knowing that there was already a reported school? I want to go shoot a school up report on Discord with his name on it. That's the problem. This young man could have gotten help. He could have gotten some counseling and different things. Maybe CPS could have stepped in. Maybe something else could have happened for him that could have avoided this tragedy. If you look at the shooting in Michigan, Oxford, Michigan, a couple of years ago, same thing. He was 15, I believe, at the time, and you look at the reports from that family, massive dysfunction, just constant. This family members even said massive dysfunction, lots of dysfunction. So when you look at what happened with Michigan, same thing. The parents knew. that he had a problem. They knew that there was mistrust amongst themselves as parents in the home. They knew that he was having trouble in school. They knew that he was drawing these crazy, like, death pictures that kind of set the school off a little bit to say, hey, what's going on with this stuff? The way it was reported, and if I get this wrong, I apologize. I'll correct it in the next show if I do. But the way it was reported, he knew. I'm sorry, I take this back. They knew. The parents knew there was a problem. The school knew. They had a meeting with him on the day. No one checked his backpack. So on the day of this meeting to figure out his issues and problems is when this tragedy took place. When those parents got arrested, and they should have, I told everybody then on my podcast is Lead Your Teen on Spotify. I said, we're going to see this case as setting precedent now to go after parents when their kids do something and hurt people like this, if they knew ahead of time that this was a possibility. When the dad in Georgia got arrested, the Michigan case was mentioned. But there again, he knew what was going on. So how then do we as a society step up and say, okay, if politicians aren't going to make new policy, this is something I want to get out of this next 8 weeks. I want us to try, once I get this. I am so mad right now that I can't get you guys on here to have comment. I'm so angry. If you want to comment on my YouTube channel, um, hopefully it'll be on there. It's supposed to, and you can make comment on there. If not, you can email me at leadyourteen@gmail.com. Leadyourteen, as in teenager, at gmail.com. It's also on the poster I've sent out. I'd love to know your thoughts. Let me get this whole technical stuff figured out and working. I'm so mad right now. I can't even tell you how mad I am right now for this. So as we go forward to the next couple weeks, I want us as a group to try and come up with something that we could present to maybe politicians, school board, wherever. I was thinking maybe, if I don't want to take people's guns away, I'm not an anti-gun person, but I do know that guns in the wrong hands are the problem. And like this dad in Georgia, he said, "Oh yeah, we have guns in the house, and they're locked up. He doesn't have access to them." But then he went and bought him one. If there had been something in place, like say a lock provided by the county, to say your son met this benchmark and this benchmark, your family's got this going on, you can keep your guns, Dad, but you're going to put them locked up in the safe that we provide, that only you and we have the code to. So only you as a father. So if something happens, he got it from you, and the sheriff's office has it registered. Maybe that's what we do. This way, we're not taking away people's right to own a gun. That's not what I'm saying here. But if they're not responsible enough to keep those weapons out of their kids' hands, then I think, as much as I hate to say it, Big Brother, I think that we need to do something, because it's only fair to other parents. It's only fair to other people in society, that if you are not a leader and you are not willing to do what you have to do, then I guess we have to do it for you. I know that sounds crazy, but maybe we do. But look at the case in Virginia with the 6-year-old who shot a school teacher. He was a boy who was 6 years old, first grade. He got a loaded handgun from a closet, took it to school, put it in the bag. 6 years old, put it in a backpack, took it to school, told his friends he had a gun. So the friends got scared and told teachers. Teachers supposedly checked the bag and couldn't find it. And then later that afternoon, he pulled it out and he shot his school teacher right here, just above her heart. 6 years old. When that happened, when that story broke, I said, and it's on my YouTube channel, there has to be massive dysfunction in that home. There's no way a 6-year-old would know how to just grab a gun, put it in his backpack, not shoot himself in the foot, carry it to school, pull it out, and know how to aim it and squeeze the trigger. What would drive a 6-year-old to think that murdering his teacher was even remotely okay? If we go back to the trust mistrust, if we go back to the early psychological ideas of Dr. Erickson, uh, Jean Piaget, I'll talk about him. Um, Dr. Alfred Adler, talk about him. These are all names we're going to bring up throughout the course of this series. Dr. John B. Watson is another one. All of these men were knee deep in conditioning, child development, human behavior. They are the ones that I absolutely have been jumping into for the last 10 years because their work is so important for what I love to do, which is help young people and their families be better, to be able to thrive. So, understanding the work of Dr. Eric Erickson, Dr. John B. Watson, Jean Piaget, uh, Alfred Adler, uh, there's so many. Oh my gosh, I could list so many right now. Most of them do come out of some Freudian theories. I don't want to get too deep into Freud. Was never a big Freud fan in college. I thought he was kind of weird actually, but I didn't really like Freud. Uh, but these other men are amazing, and as we go into this series and we talk about the different schools of thought with psychology early on, whether it's conditioning, like through Pavlov, or it's motivation, innate motivation, or just the negative belief systems that people put on themselves through labeling. Here's another little thing that we don't want to do with young kids, and we do it with kids that are having problems. We label them. If and I talk about labels all the time, I talk about it in my book. Um, this is my book. It's being relaunched. That's why this is a proof copy. I've showed this before. But in this book, I talk about all this and I talk about the dangers of labeling your kids. And what I mean by that is when we label them, we say, my son can't, my son is lazy, my son is afraid, my son has uh, depression, or my son has, or my daughter can't go talk to people because she's afraid. Um, Here it is right here. I don't know if you can see this or not. I say right there. Labels, failure, and low self esteem. Um, when you label someone with a negative term, it absolutely puts them in a tailspin. Right here on chat on page 6 says labels kill a sense of purpose in teens. So when you put that excuse maker on them with a label of I can't, they can't, he can't, she can't. Now, when something new comes up, they want to do it. The first thing they think is, "Oh, I can't do that." Now they start to feel terrible about themselves. And when we go back and look at what Erickson talks about uh, with the inferiority complex, that's one of the stages. This happens pretty early in life. If a kid already feels like they're not good enough and they can't do something, they're never going to try and they're going to be left behind, which also makes them feel bad because now that they're 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, 24, 29, 30, yes, that old, and they haven't experienced their own sense of autonomy to go from one stage to a next properly and to work through things and to experience uh, mistakes, experience life. They're always in a sense of fear. They're always in this sense of, this little fragile egg. But when they hit a certain age, society says, why aren't you doing something? Why aren't you getting a job? Why aren't you going to school? Why aren't you moving out of the house? Why aren't you? And now more guilt piles on to the kid. When this happens to a 14 or 15-year-old, they don't have any other recourse but to explode. No one has listened to them from day one. No one has made them feel special. No one has made them feel good about who they are as a person. The school has labeled them as the bad kid, the slow kid, the troubled kid. Peers have labeled them the weirdo, the psycho, the strange kid. Society has labeled them as the loser, the and so it's just one thing after another. One of the most horrific killings here lately, a couple of years ago, was by a 14-year-old in Jacksonville, Florida, who used a knife to lure a 13-year-old girl, a cheerleader, um, into like the woods area one night. And I might have this number wrong, but he stabbed her, I think it was 114 times. 114 times. When asked why he did it, he said, I just wanted to see what it'd feel like. When a young person at 14 has such a loss of empathy and care for another human being, we have to ask ourselves, what happened to that kid? What happened to him that he felt that watching someone die at his own hand, viciously, just horribly, just to see what it would feel like? What happened to him? So, as his story started to come out, we looked at his father's history. There was dysfunction there. I don't have the whole detail, but there was dysfunction, a lot of the same things. So, as we go through these next 8 weeks, we're going to look at the red flags. So, we can look at kids and say, okay, does this kid need some help? Do we need to dig deeper into this? The problem is, too, schools, and like I said earlier, schools and social services are so overworked, underfunded, and stressed themselves that they cannot do everything for every kid. I used to work for a company that was one of the biggest foster care providers in the country. And they lost that account with the state because of a death. And shortly after that, I believe that the company that took over also suffered a loss of life. Kids in the foster care system are treated like, I don't want to say property, but there's so many of them. One of the kids I worked with years ago, he was a foster care kid and he aged out. And he told us that, hey, when you age out, there's no services for you. We have no skills. Half of them have been bounced around from family to family. If they have a diploma, they're lucky. If they have any job skills, it's a shock. Basically, what they have is they've had a roof over their head, not always a good one. And now that they're aging out of the system, they have nowhere to go. So for a lot, especially guys, so where do they go? They usually go to jail. They might couch surf again. They might get homeless. Not all of them, but there's a large percentage that just end up back on the street. It's a horrible existence for these kids. And why is that? Because when they were younger, their parents were on drugs or something happened. I know kids that were in the system, the mom died of an overdose, and the dad was so distraught, he just left them. He literally left his two kids at a hotel and never came back. And when they were discovered in this hotel because they couldn't pay the bill, and the hotel found out that there was two kids in there, then they called CPS, and then everything happened from there. He, I believe, was 11 at the time, and his sister, I think, was 13. So they're both very young. They can't work. They can't do anything. Too young to work. They can't live on their own. So they go in the system. Coming out of the system, they were not prepared. He was a little better off than his sister, but his sister took a terrible turn. Stories like this are all the time. When we think of a school shooter, we think, okay, he's just a crazy nut. What, how to get the gun? What's going on? Look what happened to President Trump. He wasn't a school shooter, but he was of the age. He was, what, 22, I believe. So the age that we're looking at in this series is 14 to 24. So every kid that is committed one of these acts doesn't have to be still in high school. They can be of that adolescent age. Now we talk about adolescent age. Typically, it's what, 10 to 24. That seems to be the acknowledged age of the brain for adolescents. Even though a young person can drive, they can go to work, they can go to school, they're functioning, their brain is still not fully formed. And what I mean by that is the prefrontal cortex and all the connections to make them able to decide, hey, should I do this? If I do, what's going to happen? Should I really go 110 miles an hour and pass this guy on a 2-lane road? And oh wait, I'm gonna drive into a house. Happened last Friday. 18 years old, because we were there and we found how old he was. 18. When this was happening, he wasn't thinking about the outcome. He wasn't thinking about the oncoming traffic. He wasn't thinking about, what if I lose control on a wet road? It's been raining here every day in Florida, and drive into a house. That's not in his brain, because he doesn't have the foresight yet. So all these kids that are still underdeveloped cognitively, we have to say, okay, uh, horrible crime, did a bad thing, and they're going to get punished for it, and they're going to get charged the way they should per the justice system. But as society, we would say, what's going on with these kids? Where are we falling short with them? Where are we failing them? Now, I know that teenagers have been doing dumb things since the beginning of time. But today, with the cell phones, where's my phone? With these, right? And access to more and more things, young people are doing things today that even 20 years ago you couldn't think of. Another big problem that we have with kids today, with the labeling and all these different things, is we're giving them everything. That kid was driving a Lexus the other day, wrecked it, totaled it. Dad was like, oh, okay. Kids are getting cars, nice cars. Kids are getting whatever they want. It's called a token economy. What parents have been doing for years is, it's very easy when a child is small. Let's just say this is something they want. Very easy, right? Here's a little something to be quiet. Just go do what you got to do. If I give you this, we be quiet. If you don't be quiet, I'm going to take that away from you. So that's all bribery, whatever the thing is that they want. As they get older, those things get to be bigger and more expensive. But to keep the behavioral needs of the parent in line, the parents give in, or the grandparents give in. So it's never good enough to have a car. It has to be a certain type of car. It's never good enough to have a tablet. It has to be a certain kind of tablet. It's never good enough to play 3 hours online. They want 6 hours online. We're going to talk about that in a second, too. As these kids get older and they want more and more and more, it's harder for the parents to continue to feed that monster. As they start to pull things back and say, I can't give you another car. I can't give you, it's too expensive to buy these shoes, or it's too expensive to do this, or I'm not doing it anymore. What happens? How many videos have you seen on TikTok or Instagram or wherever, YouTube, where a kid's parents have taken away their iPhone or their tablet or any phone? It doesn't mean iPhone, any phone. They go crazy. They go nuts. There was an incident here in Florida about a year or so ago where a very large teenager attacked a teacher because she asked him to put his device away in school. And he beat the heck out of her. This is what's happening in society today, the anger, the lack of empathy, the lack of care, the lack of compassion, the lack of social understanding are all things that we have to look at in the next 8 weeks, because all of this combined is what leads to kids saying, you know what, I've had enough. I don't care anymore. Now, what's really scary to me is these kids know the outcome. They're going to either be shot, life in prison, or they're going to kill themselves. It just boggles my mind to think that these kids don't care about their own life, let alone others, at such a young age. Think about when you were 14 or 15 years old. What was on your mind? Probably what movie was playing on Friday night, or was there a home football game, or whose house you going to hang out at? It wasn't, I'm going to go blow somebody up. I'm going to go figure out a way to, hurt as many people as possible. The problem with society today also is the internet. Apparently, this young guy was in Georgia, was on a site called Discord. I've never heard of that. I also heard that there's a game called Roadblocks that is terrible to know. There's also WhatsApp. I talk about these in the book too. I talk about all the different apps that kids are on. And I talk about them mainly because the people that are on those apps as well are probably my age, or could be. I'm 57, so maybe a little bit younger, but they're not teenagers, and they certainly don't have any good intentions for young people. So, in addition to the school shooter mentality, you have just kids that are angry in general or finding themselves in trouble. They're embarrassed if something happens. They're angry when things don't go their way. So, looking at the early developmental brain uh, studies and science, which we're going to do, I'm going to bring in, so I'm going to make all this happen so I can make this work with the, make all this happen. I'm so mad over this whole thing right now. But I do have guests coming in. So I've got a therapist coming in. I'm talking to a psychologist. My goal is to actually find one of these school shooters. I got to find what prison they're in, all of them, talk with the Department of Corrections and probably their legal team, and see if we can actually get them on. And I'm hoping that in week 8 to have someone of that. Uh, I'm hoping to have one of those kids on so we can listen to what they're thinking, what they were going through. They may not speak at all. They might get on here and just go, and they're done. They might have a lawyer in the room saying, don't say this, don't say that, because it can incriminate if there's more cases going on or appeals going on. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm going to try. Because to understand the psychology of a school shooter, you have to actually talk to one. And when I mentioned this to people the other day, they were like, "Oh my gosh, you want to talk to one?" Well, we talked to Jeffrey Dahmer, we talked to Ted Bundy, we talked to the Iceman, we talked to the BTK killer, we've talked to all these horrible serial killers. It only makes sense that we speak to a school shooter and ask the questions: what was going on with you? How did you not get help? Did you ask for help? Did you want it but didn't get what you needed? How many times were you pushed through the system? How many times did you warn people? We won't know that until we actually talk to somebody. So if you stay with me over these next 8 weeks, we're going to jump in. We're going to try and make this as informative as possible because, again, I want to create something that we can then take to um, our congressman or to a local school official and say, here's a policy that people across the country have wanted. How can we get this onto a petition? How can we make this happen? It's not going to happen by November. We know that. But every couple of years, there's elections. And if there's something we can do to implement as a group to say, okay, maybe we do the lock that's a uh, parent and law enforcement code only. That was something I thought of the other day. Maybe we uh, create a leadership program for parents that they have to abide by, or there's more legal ramifications for them. whatever it is, we have to step up as a society, because we are definitely hurting each other. We are uh, taking our greatest asset, which is our young people, and whether they're a school shooter or not, if they are hurting, if they are upset, if they are um, unwilling to move forward in life, then we are letting them down. And that's something that we should all be concerned about. To say that it's just this type of kid or that type of kid is a myth, and it's terrible, because again, that's a label. Every kid, every teenager, every young 20 something is susceptible to making a bad judgment call. Every one of them is also susceptible to uh, showing us that with the right help and the right guidance, they can do great things. I'm not sure exactly uh, how we go about this. If I did, I'd be Dr. Phil or Tony Robbins, but I'm not. So I need your help, and that's what we're going to do. We have 5 minutes left, and I do apologize that um, we have not been able to get your comments on here. I'm going to fix that for the next time. I will tell you that next week, next Sunday, I'll be driving back from Georgia. I'm going to be at the Empower Success Fest. I'm one of the speakers up there in Georgia and Atlanta. If you are in Atlanta and you can make it to the Empower Success Fest, please do so. You can check that out at empowersuccessfest.com. We are trying to figure out a way to get that streamed. Hopefully, we get all the stuff worked out and get your comments in here. That would be amazing. So, as we move forward the next week or so, I want you to think about what can you do, what ideas would you have to help solve this problem? I'm going to bring professionals in. We're going to talk to people. You're going to be able to ask questions. I'm going to get this all worked out. And law enforcement, legal, school officials, politicians, we've got 8 weeks. That's why I made it an 8 week deal, so we could bring everybody in, so we could really have a live forum and make this happen. So between now and then, ask your friends, ask your kids if you have kids, ask your school officials, what are the biggest concerns? What are the biggest problems? What are the things that you see? Write those down, and you can email them to me at leadyourteen@gmail.com. I'd be happy to go through those. I can make a chart with the most common, kind of like, here's the biggest things everybody's saying. Um, this is the biggest concern, less concern, and we can work from there. So when we do have our guests on here, we can talk to them, present it, get their ideas, and put this together. We have to remember that these young people, as horrible the acts that they committed, as horrible as they are, they were still teenagers, 13, 14 years old. And I'm gonna leave you with this. I said a second ago that the adolescent age is at age 24. That's been the common age for many, many years. I believe that with the lack of development today, the the lack of growth by young people mentally, that their actual age is probably about 26 or 27. So that means that even though they're 24, 25 years old, biologically, psychologically, they act about 15, maybe 16 or 17. So there's a lot of things going on right now with, they call it the emerging adult. I do not agree with this at all. These are 29-year-olds that are having trouble with life. If you look at that and look back what I'm saying to you, that started 10, 15 years earlier. The lack of parental leadership in the home is what is causing so much of this. Because if it's bad in the home, it's going to be bad in the schools. If it's bad in the schools, it's bad in the streets. If it's bad in the streets, it's bad in the legal system. And it just goes on and on and on. Our kids today deserve better. As a society, we deserve better. And my phone is going off. And I just want you all to know that I'm sorry, I got another call going on. See, we're live. It's live, guys. We're going live. This is what they call live television. Anything can happen. So it is, I have 5:59:17. I'm going to leave you guys with this. Have an amazing week. like I said, I'm going to be off uh, next Sunday. I'll be traveling back from Atlanta from the Power Success Fest. But the following week, we'll have all this worked out. You'll be able to chime in. I'm gonna have a guest. I'll put up more posters, send things out. I welcome all your input. Leadyourteen@gmail.com. My podcast is Lead Your Teen on Spotify. That's every Wednesday. That is recorded. So you can go on there and just give a list of different things. And you can always reply to me on that as well. It is 6 o'clock. We are done. Have an amazing week, and I'll talk to you later.